So hello and welcome to another episode of the Bitstocks podcast. I'm your host, yours truly, CEO and founder of Bitstocks, Michael Hudson, and I have our CTO today, David Arakelian. David, how are you, my friend?
Very, very good. A little bit tired from yesterday, but...
Oh, you're tired from yesterday? What did we do yesterday?
What did we do yesterday? Woke up really early because we panicked about the flight. Flew to Geneva, saw some genuinely nice cars. And
Well, we woke up early, we panicked about the flight, checked Google, realized the flight said it was delayed. Then we deliberate as to whether or not we should go to Geneva or not. Then we think, sod it, let's just go to the airport. As we're on the way there, the flight's now on time. Luckily, we went early. So, crazy day yesterday. However, before we even get into anything tech related, right, because we know I can get dense really quick and
I do know that.
political really quick. Let's talk about cars. Just very quickly talk about cars, because it's one thing that I feel like people already associate Bitstocks with, because obviously we've got cars in crypto. It's a little side project that we've set up about a year ago, really. We haven't fully taken the concept and really ran with it. Obviously right now our main focus is Bitstocks, but everything about who we are and what it is that we do is all passion-led, right? You, on the other hand, my friend, even though I know you've been passionate, and I know it's even in your blood coming from your dad, why the bloody hell is it taking so long for you to unlock that passion?
Mainly due to time, to be honest. I wasn't full capacity able to enjoy the cars adventure. I always had in the back of my mind the cars that I loved, the cars that I knew inside out. And as you said, my father is a mechanic. So it kind of like inadvertently clicked at a certain age. And I think it was since 16, 17 years old. I didn't have driving license at the time, but I was literally like begging my dad to, let's go for a drive, let's go to this.
The reason why I want to start on the car journey is because to me, it's a perfect demonstration of your discipline and your character. You've had the means to be driving around in some pretty nice things for a while now. Everyone knows that I give in to my passions a little bit easier than you give in to your passions. But so David first started out, he broke his virginity with cars, really, I would say, with the Golf R, right? So that was what, 2 years ago?
No, not even 2. It's like 12 months ago.
Oh, crap.
Yeah.
It's literally like
I think it was last year, February or March, something along those lines.
So you broke your seal with the Golf, and now what do you have?
Now it's a GT4 Porsche Boxster Cayman. So
you guys have no idea the amount of times I've had to meticulously try and insert seeds into David's mind to get him to just explore one of his passions. One of the things I really love about David is the fact that you have a methodical process to pretty much everything, right? You have a prime directive, and a prime directive, which I very much resonate with, is take care of family first.
Indeed.
Take care of any other immediate concerns that you need to take care of in order to ensure that the stability of your family and your circle around you is safe and secure, which 100% I resonate with. And then you look towards having fun. And the reason why this is even relevant to even start the podcast like this, that's exactly the qualities that I identified within you when we first met, of how structured, responsible, noble, and on top of all of that, the work ethic is insane. And you are a freaking technical beast. However, one of the things that I've really enjoyed seeing in your character as the years have gone by is your bandwidth has really opened up to some more, I guess, controversial subject matters. And you have a very identifiable pattern to learning, which is you sit and you always engage in conversation with the position of being enlightened, which is, I keep on banging on about in every single one of the podcasts. I keep on speaking about this, the importance of doing this. And you've always done that. Even when I hit you with some crazy stuff, and trust me, I've come to David with some really, really crazy things.
I can confirm.
On the surface, you're like, and I can see it in your eyes, you're like, I'm pretty sure he's talking some crazy shit right now. However, because you hadn't checked it out yourself, you didn't know whether or not it checked out or not. And only once you checked it out, then you'll come back and be like, all right, you know what? I've got these 3 more questions for you. And this has caught me off guard massively over the years, because sometimes I'm sitting down, and this is not exclusively to you, this is actually predominantly most of the subjects I try to speak about in the earlier years with other people. You get that kind of dull, blank face. It's like, I'm being polite, but really and truly, I think you're crazy, and I really want to stop this conversation right now.
You can feel straight away that type of conversation.
You feel that straight away, right? But even at times where I thought I was getting that from you, a few days later, you come back with like, you've expanded on that subject matter, and you've got 3 questions. So I just kind of put that down to that awkward dev-like thing with conversation, and then you just come hit me with a wealth of information, and then we have a full-blown conversation. So it's kind of like, I guess I feel like the last few days I've even been like limiting the kind of conversation with you because we wanted to save it for this podcast in this format, right? So question I want to ask you, and then we could just stem from there and we could bounce off each other. Sure. Why do you speak 5 languages? I mentioned this on Jimmy's podcast. Why do you speak 5 languages?
Why do I speak 5 languages? I would say to cut it short, it's thanks to our broken government, which forced me to speak 5 languages. To elaborate on the story a little bit more, it all started by inflation. It all started by inflation. My family and I were born and raised in Armenia, and I was living in the capital, and during that time, it was the Soviet Union, as you know. It had multiple countries which were part of it, and Armenia was one of them. But
so what time was this?
That was around 90s till 93, along those sides. So we had quite good life. I wouldn't complain about anything, neither from the government nor from my parents, salary-wise, or the possibilities that they gave us. But there were certain things that I've noticed that you couldn't do in that type of setup, which is like Soviet Union. For instance, things that you couldn't do is like get out of the Soviet Union and travel quite easily to Europe or to America. Everything was limited, confined. If you wanted to go for holidays, there was certain places that you could go. For instance, sea. If you want to go to see the seaside, it's Russia. If you want to go, mountains or something like that, it's some other Soviet Union country. So everything was a little bit confined. So that was already the first time for me to say why we are limited. Like, if I want to go freely somewhere else, I should be able to as a human being. And then I started to understand, like, actually, because geopolitical stance that Soviet Union had with other countries, there was a very strict border controls, and people weren't allowed to go so easily. But I wouldn't complain about the country at that time. I had no issues at all. Everything was fine. You could happily live your life if you wanted to. My dad was, at that given time, a mechanic. He had his own garage with people. He was working. He was passionate. He was earning decent amount of money. My mom similarly had job, and she was in the textile industry. And it was working quite well for a family, for them to be able to provide for 2 kids, because I have a brother as well. It was more than enough, literally more than enough, and I had no issues at all. However, slowly we saw some cracks in the country itself. Things were not going as simply as you wish, such as, like, if you wanted to have certain things done, you had to start bribing people. Like, if you had normal operations, such as, like, you need to renew your passport, or you need to have this type of certificate, it's common things. Like, when my brother was born, those things were, like, really difficult to get done. And my parents started, like, to gather money and spend money more on the government side of things rather than on us. And I just felt like that's kind of strange. A government is here to, support you, and not to take money from you just because you want to do things correct.
Yeah.
And small cracks like that started to appear. And around, if I remember correctly, around 92, 93, it was a total chaos. Literally, that's how I can describe it. It was a total chaos. I have seen things where most of the people didn't even see. Like, I will give you a couple of examples. Most things which strike me is we had limited amount of electricity, for instance, water, and food supply. I remember standing up, like waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning because there was a queue from 5 o'clock in the morning with the coupon that you had to go there, get your bread, literally bread. That's your ratios that you could have. And my parents were trying everything. They were trying to get out of the country, to work outside of the country. My dad went for like 3 to 6 months, work outside of the country to send us money, to support us. We had limited amount of electricity. We couldn't do much because you had to collect like water in a tank. You had to basically like recharge your batteries to live in the house. It was a total chaos. And at that stage, my parents basically just gave up because there was no hope. More the days passed by, they were losing like patience. They couldn't support us, and they just decided to leave the country. And we relocated to Bulgaria. My dad went ahead 1 year ahead, and he established a business there, and just basically like brought the whole family there. And that was my first interaction with the government collapse.
Yeah.
The Soviet Union collapse.
So your age back then?
It was around 13, 14 years
13,
old.
14. Wow. So that you're going to have complete recollection of everything that happened at that moment in time. And then 13, 14, just on a personal level. So your friend circles, you're very well integrated at that point.
School, everything.
Incredibly well integrated at that point. And you only have, a couple more years really, I guess, of at least that level of education. And then you're looking at extending your education, you would assume, with your set group of friends, or at least some of your friends, and then you further extend your education. So then having to be completely uprooted and then placed
completely
into
disconnected.
Bulgaria.
And, yeah.
Why was Bulgaria an obvious choice? Why Bulgaria?
So Bulgaria wasn't really an obvious choice. Bulgaria was one of my dad's friends was already there, so he helped him to basically integrate, and there was good business possibilities there. The commerce was really good. People were doing loads of commerce. Local businesses were striving, and that was kind of like a push for him to say like, well, I can do this. Let's give it a shot. So he left early, set up his business, and then called us back, basically took us from Armenia to Bulgaria. And that was my first interaction to see like what happened when a government literally collapses.
Yeah.
It wasn't only related to monetary system collapsing, it was a Soviet Union collapse.
Yeah.
Because in 93, the whole Soviet Union collapsed and it was chaos. Like new governments had to be formed, separate borders had to be set up, basically everything from scratch.
Yeah.
And that was where I just thought, didn't think too much about it. I was just, these things happen in life, so let's just move on. That's where like I didn't click,
Yeah.
I was still young at that age. It was 13, 14 years old. For me, it was all about, we're moving a country. My parents are working.
It's an incredible landmark to then, once you've broadened your perspective with time, age, education, knowledge, and then to look back at a scenario with new eyes. I do this all the time, right? And for instance, with me, one of the huge anchoring things in my early development that solidified my relationship with money is that I directly correlated happiness and money when I was a kid. Naively, obviously, at the time, because I thought money was happiness due to the instabilities I saw within my own household when there was no money within the household, the kind of situations that will present themselves that might had not have presented themselves if there was money in the household. In fact, I know point blank, they didn't present themselves. Things were a lot easier in the household when there was money around. And as a kid, I couldn't have been older than 8 years old at this point. I remember saying to myself, as a child, when I get older, I'm always going to have money. Not because of financial prowess. It was because I just assumed this is how you're happy, right?
Interesting.
So it's only once you then get older, then you think, okay, do you know what? Clearly money isn't happiness. Very naive views, much deeper than that. And then that's what then led me onto the subject of time and evaluating and looking at money in that way. And this is why I think your story is incredibly powerful, because there's so many, like even Jimmy has a very, very similar story as well, right? There's so many stories that we have that, in my opinion, are perfect advertisements for why we need a global, stable, geopolitically neutral
And transparent
economic system.
Indeed.
Right? So we're Russian, Bulgarian.
So that stage, like I was already speaking Russian and Armenian because Armenian is my native tongue. And Russian because it was kind of forced in school. You were under the Soviet Union, so not propaganda, just requirement. So then went to Bulgaria. Bulgarian alphabet is very similar to Russian Cyrillic, and I was able to pick up quite quickly the language. It is not the same way of talking, not the same words, but to pick up, to read, and to pronunciate things is very similar to Russian.
Yeah.
So it helped me quite quickly to make sure that those things are easy for me to pick them up and go ahead. So I integrated in school, started learning Bulgarian. At that stage, I think I was like 13, 14 years old, as I said. And I've noticed like my parents working really hard to provide everything for us at that stage. That is where I was growing a little bit. I was getting into like 15 years old, kind of, you are...
Troublesome years.
Trouble age, where you argue a little bit with your parents and they were literally like, well, we try to provide you with everything. We are working relentlessly. You can see us doing double shifts. Sometimes I didn't even see my dad coming home or going in the morning. He would leave at 7 o'clock. He had to travel like 2 hours to another city because the commerce at that given day was booming in that city. Come back at like midnight. Next day, do the same thing. And that's like 7 days in a row. So at that stage, I didn't really appreciate how much effort, and I wouldn't comprehend. I wasn't comprehending like what was really happening, but I knew that they were really hardworking. So what I had as a task at that given time was to take care of my little brother. He was 3 years younger than me, so he wasn't really like switched on what was happening. He just knew like, oh, we came to a new country and we are here now and we just need to go to school. So I would prepare everything in the morning, like his lunch, breakfast, hold his hand and go to school together. And my mom was freaking out because it was like, oh, are you sure you're going to be okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm 15 now. You should trust me. So,
I speak 3 languages.
playing the big brother role, which gave me quite big confidence, like about myself, what I can do at that age, not stage, sorry. And I think that was a moment where I started to grow as a person because I was able to take on board like responsibility. This was the defining point where I was trying to take a little bit by bit from my parents and help them as much as I can by small things, like take care of my brother, make sure that the house is clean, or those type of small things where as a child, when your parents come home, you do small things and you're like, oh, that was nice. Sometimes I even remember like I was making a dinner and my mom was like, did you make this? I was like, yeah. And she was like, that was good, thank you. And this is the time where I was starting to grow and I was starting to have like...
Did you feel like you was becoming quite conscious and empathetic towards the adult perspective, I guess, as to what your parents were being exposed with, and you was consciously, maybe even subconsciously at that point?
I think subconsciously I was trying to give something back because I felt like they were doing so much.
Yeah.
And I had free time. Like I wasn't doing anything apart from going to school and coming back home, and then playing. Gaming is something else that I was a big fan of.
We can touch on that a bit.
big fan of. So I just felt like those are small things. Let's just do it and do it really good. So at that stage, as you counted already, Bulgarian, Armenian, and Russian was languages that I started speaking. And then...
So how long was you in Bulgaria?
2 years.
2 years?
Yeah.
And then what took all of you guys to France? Because I don't even think I know this story yet.
No, you don't know the small hole.
Yeah. I know France is definitely very important to why you're here right now. But that's all I know. But then I now also know that your parents live in France. But I don't know the story as how you went from Bulgaria to France. So this is completely new for me as well.
So we are in Bulgaria. Again, similar situation. My parents are, I wouldn't call wealthy. They're well off. They don't have any issues. They don't have any debt. They are striving to get anything that they need.
So they managed to restabilize themselves again in Bulgaria.
Yes.
That's entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah. Under 2 years to recover from such loss, because it was monumental. The loss that they had was literally wiped out their wealth, everything that they had. To rebuild I think it was amazing, like to achieve such growth
Did they
in
want a
such
job?
short time. Sorry?
Did they still want a job?
So Bulgaria, I spent around 2 years. So started having circle of friends, everything, integrate into the society. And then there was the issue with the monetary system in Bulgaria. This is where was my second encounter of like how the government is losing its control, because it was genuinely a control, and what is happening when that situation strives. And
This is on the cusp of the whole European zone, right?
so the Bulgarian money was becoming worthless and like every single day. I would remember people were basically starting trading with blocks of money, and rather than just like normal small amounts, and the block was getting bigger and bigger, so you had to carry like cash.
Was you a big blocker?
That's where my name is coming from. So the value of the money and the purchasing power of the money was diminishing over time quite drastically and quickly. So my parents didn't know what to do, because they didn't have any chance to get anything out of it. So what they tried to do is to purchase some assets, such as like a car or some valuable gold, and basically to fight the money losing its value.
Yeah.
So within those 2 years, there was not an inflation, but a hyperinflation. The whole value of the money disappeared. A lot of people lost their businesses, and it went into chaos again. And my parents literally ended up having just a car, small amounts here and there. And we just decided to go back to Armenia, because bear in mind that during those 2 years, Armenia was rebuilding, right? So they were giving incentives to people who left the country. They know that a lot of people left because of what happened. To come back in, to rebuild, to give them incentives, like to say, you have a job, you have money, the government will help you. So that was kind of the reason that we went back to Armenia. I was quite excited because I was waiting to see my circle of friends, the school friends that I had since the beginning. And it was a strange feeling, like to come back from 2 years of absence and find out that things have changed. Things have changed quite drastically. People are different. The same circle of friends that I had is no longer the same, because it's impossible to not keep in touch for 2 years and then just expect that you will be reintegrated again into the society, into the circle of friends that you had. And it was quite a shock for me, because at that stage I was already like 16, 17 years old, and I was more mature. I had better vision of what's really happening, and I was starting to question what really money is at that stage. What do you get when you have a lot of money? What you can do with it? What is a purchasing power? What is really money? Where does it come from? So that's where I started to question lots of things, and I was trying to be more cautious about how I do certain things in life, and being very close with my parents, just to make sure that they're not going to go through this hell of a cycle again. To tell you really like a scary story, actually, we had to leave one of our cars in Bulgaria, pack like one of the other cars that we had fully, like backpack everything on top, hop in and travel from Bulgaria to Armenia across Turkey. And it was roughly around 3,000 kilometers, if I remember correctly. And it took us like 3-4 days.
Yeah.
And the weather conditions were snowing, and you know, the old Russian Soviet Union cars are not very well equipped for snow conditions.
So I actually have a taste of that myself. So early Bitstocks days, going from different country to different country, trying to secure a bank account, then getting the business in full swing, bank account gets shut down for no apparent reason, then you're in a frantic dash to try and find a new bank account. One of those banks eventually was in Bulgaria, right? Was it Boss Bank? I think that was that? No, that's Poland.
Boss is Poland, I think, yeah.
I forget the name of the bank. But I remember flying into Bulgaria, hiring a car. I got a rental car. This is the first time I've ever driven on the wrong side of the road. First time I've ever driven on the left side, and the first time I've ever used my right hand to change a gear, because it was not automatic, right? And I'm there on the mission of securing Bitstocks' new bank account. Right? This is a really early days. We were such a small team, right? And I hit the mountain. I don't know why the navigation. I don't know if it's basically all super dangerous driving in Bulgaria, but pretty much everywhere I went, I was like, if I don't pay attention here, this can be a problem. And I was on this mountain, and the cliff that you're gonna fall off, you just don't even want to look down it. Going to the bank, this is, I think it was like 150 miles. I had to travel from the airport to the bank location, 150 miles, right? That's how dedicated we are here at Bitstocks. 150 miles. Going there wasn't that bad. I was still terrified, but the reason why it wasn't that bad is I arrived in the morning, so therefore I was making a journey in the sunlight. And it was snowing, but it wasn't that bad. On the way back, however, and I had to make it back, otherwise I would have missed the flight. It was absolutely bucking it down with snow. This is a mountain. There is no sunlight. There are no lights. There's no floodlights. There's nothing. And as you know, they're not the most well-defined roads, like at all. Like genuinely, I thought I was gonna die trying to secure Bitstocks, a new bank account in Bulgaria. So to do 3,000 miles with all of that crazy stuff on top, the car packed out, your family in the car, just to give you like a sense of scale. Driving in those like Bulgaria and the areas that I drove in Bulgaria, the mountain roads, is dangerous in a very good car, let alone what it is that David's describing right now.
Mountains in Bulgaria are very beautiful, but very dangerous at the same time. For hiking, it's excellent. But for driving during winter, it's a no-go. And yeah, like when we were driving back, I remember one of the nights when the car wasn't pulling at all. Like we had to stop on top of the mountain, literally inclined like this, handbrake, and we had to wait the morning because they had to clean the road. Like we couldn't go further. So there's no hotel, nothing. You are literally in the middle of the mountain, stuck. Like who are you gonna call? You don't know anybody in Turkey.
Yeah.
You're just stuck in the middle of mountain. And like we just decided to wait until the morning, like sunrise. And I fall asleep. I think like suddenly I saw like my dad panicking, like shouting, and he just pulled us over and just dropped us on the floor. I was like, whoa, what's happening? And I just saw the car was literally like going downhill. Whoa. So he literally like pulled us, everyone on the floor, and just let the car go. And the car was going down, and just stopped. And so we had like to wait outside in snow until the morning because it was crazy conditions. We couldn't risk anything else. There was nothing else to do until to wait. And in the morning, hopefully, there was like a tractor cleaning the roads.
Yeah.
He pulled us over with the chain, everything, and that was a hell of an experience. But
so again, even going back to your home country, your whole lives were at risk.
Yep, painful
again as
experience.
Well. So that now you're back to Armenia. How did you then get to France? Because this is where your programming journey starts, right? It's when you get to France.
So when I was in Armenia, like this is where I actually started learning loads of computing, and it is thanks to one of my teachers actually. He encouraged me to do outside of teaching lessons, like outside of the classes.
Oh, that was in Armenia?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is where my first experience of like crazy computers has started.
Yeah.
I remember, I think we were running like 386 or 486 systems.
Yeah.
And then like 3 months later, he brought us like 233 megahertz, and we were like, "Oh my god, this is so fast!"
I remember that was like the first Pentium chips.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah,
the Pentium 2.
I remember the massive, the gold pins, the massive gold pins. It was like a purple-ish CPU. Yep. You had a huge die in the middle, and then a massive gold pins underneath, right?
it was like big beast.
Actually, no, those ones were cassettes, weren't they?
No, those were like still with the floppy. They still had the floppy ones.
The processors were like the thick black cassette looking ones that you slot in, looked like an N64 cartridge. I'm pretty sure. No, you did. I'm pretty sure Pentium, and even Pentium 2s. I'm pretty sure even those, they still had the cartridge
Maybe
style slot.
maybe I'm not. I don't.
I was more into hardware. David's more software. Yeah.
No, that was actually a very similar experience with hardware. So
Oh, is
he
it?
was
Okay.
teaching me networking. So the first lesson that he did was like, here's a cable. We have a computer on the 3rd floor, and we're on the 1st floor. Let's communicate. I was like, okay. So what do we do? So we wired like 300 meters cable from the building to the 3rd floor. And he was like, look, you can ping this machine. It's all cool. I was like, what do you mean?
This was the internet forums before internet forums became a thing, right? I've got a really long cable. I could talk to you up there, and you stay down here.
It was exactly that. I remember like the only thing we could do is basically like program in Quick Basic. Then we moved on to Pascal, and he was showing us around like how to actually use internet. And it was really good because the government was helping you to basically like giving grants for people who want to be learning or teaching. And my teacher got one of those grants, and he set up like a small office on the 1st floor of the school. And after school, you could just go there for as long as you want to and just do your shit.
Yeah.
And he was really kind, he was really understanding, and he was just passionate about things, really passionate. Like, I remember he had a family and he would not go home. His wife was calling him and he would not go home. He would be like, I'm really busy, I'll be home tonight. So he was really passionate. He had like 3-4 students, one of which was myself. And over time, he gave me more, he trusted me more.
Yeah.
He gave me like admin rights. So he was like, when I'm not here, use them, but with cautious.
Yeah.
This is where like, trust, mutual relationship.
Yeah.
That has been really important for me to understand. He was really older than me. Like,
what was it about computing that captivated you? Like the programming side.
I
of
think
it. What is it that really captivated
understanding
you? And back
things.
then, where did your imagination go?
I was curious about how things work. I was curious about building things, and that's where I was given the tools. And I had a teacher who would be literally like teaching you how to do things. You had any question, you just ask.
Yeah.
And he would be just there explaining you certain things. And this is where I was being meticulous about certain things, like how programs work, what resources you can use, what is a memory, CPU, hard drives, anything related to hardware inside. And that's where I think nowadays in schools, they just dismiss that topic. They just like straight away to web programming this, because the job specs say so. So you just need to know the skill sets. But I think overall you still need to understand how systems work in order to get like the better picture of how you need to do your thing in order to work properly. So I remember we were spending like hours. At one stage, my mom would call him at like 1 a.m. and be like, "Are you guys still there?" And he would be like, yeah, we're still doing, what's up? And I was like, it's 1 a.m. And I was like, oh, sorry, we'll set the taxi now and we'll, I will send him over. So, and then it was like, no, his dad is coming to take him over.
Yeah.
So my dad will come and we had like 20 minutes walk home and I'll be like, still talking about computing. I was like, okay. And that was the moment where I started to really be passionate.
Completely fell in love with coding, programming.
Yeah.
So then because the language I most know you for and what I see you speak most, obviously apart from English, is French, right? And I find this an interesting one. It's because of what's going on in France right now. So we've got collapse of Soviet Union, collapse of independent Bulgaria, then going back to Armenia, and now your family's based and situated in France, which is going through its own economic and political issues right now. Very not too dissimilar, I guess, really, to what you've seen in the past. So now we have a situation in France where the vast majority of people in Paris, at least, right, I know this is spreading throughout France and it's not being widely covered, where we have the yellow vest protest. And we have an uprising of individuals in France who are rebelling against the government. And I guess this really ties into what's going on here in the UK as well, and the whole concept of democracy. why that story that you just shared with us is important is because on a personal level, I can completely see how that shaped your character. And to take those experiences and now cement that and use that as a platform in order to build on top of takes a very special type of individual and a character, which is very much why you're the CTO of Bitstocks right now. However, the other aspect to all of this is, well, it really does highlight the Bitcoin case. Like it really, really, really highlights the Bitcoin case. And I think that's where our relationship really started to go to a different level, because we always shared quite similar, I guess, interest, like gaming, computing, anime. We've always shared quite similar interests. So even when we was first working together, you was running consultancy with a couple of other individuals. I was utilizing your consultancy, but we always got on. We always got on. I was always doing some wacky, crazy alternative stuff. I needed wacky, crazy coders who were forward thinking and who didn't see problems, who always saw challenges and wanted to rise above challenges. And it's in these early days, so this is, what, 7 years ago?
I think it was around 2012, 13 or something like that.
Yeah, 7 years ago. It's almost kind of at the same time we came across Bitcoin. I remember I first came across it and I was nerding out about it with Ilya. In fact, Ilya was nerding out about it to me. And then I actually remember coming to your office wanting to have a conversation with you guys about Bitcoin. And you guys were mining.
Yep.
You guys had this bench. You was mining. You had those Radeon, those dual card.
I think it was 7950s or something like that.
Yeah. The 7950Xs.
Yeah, we got 4 of those.
Yeah. So you guys, your office was hot, right? So straight away, I've now gotten different exposure. I came to your offices on the basis to talk to you about this new cool thing called Bitcoin. I walk in and guess what? You guys are mining Bitcoin. So how did you first come across Bitcoin?
I think it was across like forums, people talking about Bitcoin, and I was like, what is this thing? Like, started reading about it. I think spoke with one of the colleagues as well, and we just got hooked really quickly, because you just want to understand how things work and why this thing exists and why there's the hype around it, and you just find it. So as a developer, since you understand the concept of how things works, you are just fascinated about it.
Yeah.
The more you understand how it works, the more you're like, this is genius. This is well done. Whoever has designed this architecture, it's just amazing. Like how it works, the economics, incentives, it's just crazy. That's where I got hooked, and I started to understand. I started to have the desire to understand more and more.
And the more I understand about your character, the more I realize just how almost conflicting two components of your characters could be if you didn't have the approach that you have. You have one which is from the experiences that you've had growing up, taking care of your base first is utmost, right? Being quite risk averse and taking care of your foundations because you know how quickly those foundations could be taken away from you is definitely a prime directive for you and something I definitely respect you for. But then on the other hand, you see a new opportunity, something as wacky and as crazy as Bitcoin, and risk isn't your concern. It really isn't your concern. Like you see a new technology and instantly you want to see what that technology can do and provide. And you're always willing to make the leap. And this is where I guess Bitstocks really was founded, because I knew for the most part what I wanted to achieve with Bitstocks and with Bitcoin. However, if I'm going to embark on this journey and this mission, and in seeing how these other companies and the reputation of these other companies, the hacks after hacks after hacks, it was imperative that the CTO of the company is someone who's technically competent, but even more important than that, and not to say that this isn't the foremost and utmost, because you are a technical beast. nobility is incredibly important, right? Really, 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 really important. But also as well for me, and this is like a requirement for me, right? You have to view the world, analyze the world, be very detailed with your analysis and realistic, balanced, but also don't bitch and moan, be willing to build the solutions, right? Not many people fit that bill. A lot of people can analyze the situation. A lot of people can complain about a situation. A lot of people, even with having knowledge, don't necessarily mean that you act upon that knowledge, right? I think Bitstocks really was a moment for us where these crazy subject matters that we have spoken about over the years, which I definitely want to touch on very, very shortly, allowed us to focus intent. Your personal background that shaped and formed who you are as an adult, my personal background that shaped and formed who I am as an adult. And we now see an opportunity where we can provide a genuine solution, essentially a wealth generation vehicle built on solid foundations with neutrality built into the actual system, geopolitical neutrality, and even we want neutrality from us as a company, right? But these things have to happen in stages, in steps. That, I feel, is one of the real strongest attributes to what Bitstocks is, right? We are a powerful duo, and I'm going to say it for the camera, we really are a powerful duo because there is a lot of trust, respect, but more important, there's a lot of freaking vision and talent there as well, and the ability to go and pursue that vision and that talent. What are the biggest challenges, I guess, and I'm going to point the gun right at my direction right now. I'm not the easiest guy to work with, right? And I throw some crazy stuff, and you're not allowed to laugh, or you're not meant to be on camera, right?
If everyone laughs in the room, then you know it's true.
You know it's true, right? Why someone who had a relationship like you have had with instability, then when thrown a crazy idea, 'cause this idea, when formalized, was really fresh, to say the least. What made you take the leap?
I didn't see any financial opportunities at that stage, and that was not what I was seeking. What I wanted to understand is this technology going to enable something for the human beings? And is it going to make my life easier, or is it going to be used for something that I don't even comprehend or imagine yet? So I was just exploring at that stage. I was literally exploring. And the more I explored it, the more I saw that this technology can be wiping out a lot of redundant job specs or government positions where people are not being transparent. People are trying to basically use their resources in a wrongful way. And mainly I was very angry at the government, really very angry. I wanted to say, like, you basically effed up twice.
Yeah.
What you going to do about it?
Yeah.
And I don't want you to do it the third time. I want you to take the measures to make sure that you're safeguarded. The same way that I'm doing the measures, I'm taking the measures, solidifying my, stance in this world, making sure that my family is happy. I want you to solidify your stance as a government to make sure your citizens are happy.
Yeah.
So that technology, the Bitcoin technology, is for me a mandatory step, really a mandatory step for the government to use, to explore, and to start using it at even the tiniest capacity. Because as you know, Bitcoin in itself is an ecosystem, and what we have been using it is just a tiny capacity of it. But even if the government start using that tiny capacity, the world will be in a much better place nowadays. And I wanted to make sure that companies and people who are developing tools around this ecosystem, Bitcoin, is growing. That's where I wanted. I wanted to give people education about Bitcoin, about their own personal sovereignty. I wanted them to know how these things work. I was banging on, like, to all my friends. They were like, as you said, they were like, the face of like, yeah. This guy's crazy. So I didn't care. I really didn't care. I got it. I wanted you to get it as well. That was why I made the leap.
One place that you and I have at least initially disagreed on. It took you a little bit longer to, I guess, step away from the BTC camp than perhaps I did. And I think a large part of that for me is the different subject matters that I focus my time and attention on studying and researching, right? I have really dedicated a vast amount of my adult life. This is stemming from even 15, 16 years old, getting a bird's eye perspective of the world, seeing the different moving components, how things connect, agendas really, and following agendas, money trails, the root core of money, even studying things like modern money mechanics, how money actually comes into creation, what money truly, really actually is, the whole mandate, the book, the whole lot. So when contentious information gets thrown out there, I look into it and I always study it, right? I've never been somebody who outsources their thinking. I really like to go into things and I like to study it. So an interesting point really, I guess, was why I was a lot more open to information towards Craig Wright, what was going on with Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin at the time as well. And because I take an approach of trying to connect agendas, I go into things a lot more willfully quicker than I guess other people do. And at the beginning, you was. But what I found really interesting is in this subject matter, how quickly your views were evolving and changing. And there was like an oscillating up and down, as with everyone, as to if it was a BTC off-chain scaling solution, small blocks, core camp, blockstream, and what that was all about, because that was the Bitcoin industry. And we really got into this when Bitcoin was it was just basically Bitcoin. You had Litecoin and you had a few other things, but in terms of the community and what was being discussed and the vision, it was all around Bitcoin. It was Bitcoin maximalism, right? But then you yourself continues, even though you had, I guess, and I did, idealistic biases to Bitcoin, where you wanted it to be the real deal, okay? Neither one of us, my approach being different, and your approach being different, your approaching from your direction, which you can explain in a minute, but even though we wanted BTC to be the real deal, and even the overwhelming wave of the community that was telling us it was a real deal, neither one of us, because of our background and our experience, was willing to take it at face value. So what started turning the tide for you?
A couple of things. I think one is it boils down to verify it yourself. So I started doing more research on, I wasn't taking what people were saying online for granted. I was doing my research on my own and trying things just to see how easy it is to use. It's very simple to say like Lightning Network is up and running, you can make payments. Yeah, but nobody says that takes you like a day or two to set it up, rather than just spend your money quite easily on another network, like within seconds. So those things like were one approach that I started to take. I was trying things on my own more. I was confirming what is true, what is fake, or what is reasonably within the scale of like, yep, this is feasible, this is not feasible. Second, I think you are right that you said in terms of like the vision, you did mention like bird's eye view. I think my spectrum of vision became larger, mainly thanks to you, and the seeing things from the outside of the vision of a developer, because we get bogged down quite quickly. As a developer, if you are tackling a subject or trying to understand things, like literally you're laser focused. You
Yeah,
want
plugged in.
you are plugged in. You want to understand every single thing because that's the way it is. Developers tend to do that. It's not a bad thing. You just want to understand how things work because you want to make sure that you know the system that you're playing with or you're going to build on top of it is meant to be the way that you want it to be. So I think from this connection of enlarging my spectrum of vision was other aspect of it to contribute towards me seeing why certain technologies is literally dead end. However you present it, however you market it, however you try to change it, it's still dead end.
Yeah.
Like you can't compare them. So that's where I made the leap towards like on-chain scaling more rather than off-chain. Don't get me wrong, off-chain scaling has its own merits. There is a necessity to have off-chain scaling at one stage for certain things, so for certain type of transactions that you don't need to pollute the blockchain. But it is right now it is really, really stupid and unnecessary to say that 1 megabyte blocks is the way to go. As simple as that. If you are arguing, give me real figures. Tell me that the network cannot support it because this and why. But nobody in this world. I've raised this concern online with the developers and stuff. I was the teacher, like, can you tell me if 2 megabytes is sustainable or not? And the answer I get every single time is, it's not about 2 megabytes, it's the precedent that we are setting.
And that's bollocks. And that's just idealism.
Exactly. If you cannot argue why 2 megabytes is bad for the network, and you are talking about precedent, something that you have never done and you don't know what's going to happen, why you are bringing this into the subject?
Yeah.
It is a technical subject. Let's remain within a technical domain and talk about technical things. You want to talk about economics? Let's talk about economics. None of the subjects you're going to touch base because you know that both of them you're wrong. As simple as that. So you are just dodging the bullet.
So this has really massively changed our approach to the industry, because we saw the turbulence, we saw the idealism. At a certain degree, I'll admit, I bought into some of the idealism. I wanted this Bitcoin world, and I wanted it all to be true. But the realist in both of us wasn't willing to just accept it at face value. And then we saw the imagination of engineers, the imagination of business owners within this space flow into new projects. And even through this, we try to keep a positive mentality, right? We really try to look into Ethereum. Ethereum it's no news to anyone here at Bitstocks that I have never really been bullish on Ethereum. I've always seen the holes in Ethereum. However, the concept of this interoperable blockchain world of things and the almost immediate holes we've seen in all of those, just from your perspective as a developer, how difficult is it to keep up with free blockchains? Let alone if you've got an exchange and you're working with 1,000 different coins or 100 different coins, even 20 different coins, right? How difficult is just that, just from operating a business perspective?
Well, it's a constant battle. It is literally a constant battle because things happen very quickly in the development world. This can be like changes which you need to be aware of way in advance. You need to follow up to make sure that you have integrated that in your business to not be impacted by any downtime or security. There can be hacks which you need to be aware of straight away and apply any necessary patches if there are any. There can be different ways of interacting with each blockchain, which is the case for almost every blockchain, even though majority of them are just clones from Bitcoin. They still change how the network operates. They change how you communicate with them and what you extract as data and what you use. And mostly it boils down to staying on top of things 24/7.
Yeah.
But that's doing that and at the same time running a business and building things and fixing things. It's nightmare. Like that, especially with 3 blockchains already, that's like the case.
Yeah.
Now imagine for an exchange, they have like 20 plus different blockchains that they monitor. And they need to know each single blockchain, how it works, to make sure that they are not going to fall into the unknowns. Like a good example would be recently there was news about 3 or 4 people trying to hack automated machines on Bitcoins with the RBF future. Which was developed by
Peter Todd, right?
Peter Todd, yeah, Peter Todd. It is a prime example of how less educated people are when it comes to integrating blockchains.
Yeah.
Like business model is like, let's put ATMs out there and sell and buy crypto. Great idea.
Yeah.
When it comes to execution is the problem.
In that case with, was it Block Cipher, the situation I just had recently with Ethereum.
Yeah, that's another example.
And trying to basically get a full backup of the Ethereum blockchain, and not in Vitalik has a backup. In fact, I think he was quite critical in his response about, you're one of those big node operators, right? And even the Ethereum Foundation wasn't able to help this company reconcile their data. What's the point of having a public blockchain if you can't have that data there immutably and be able to reconcile that data? Because if a company goes out of business, you can utilize a blockchain to ensure that the people that were doing business with you are still whole, whether that be from a data standpoint or whether that be from an economic or financial standpoint, right? So I guess this really builds us into gravity, okay? Because it's probably about 3 years ago, my views of the space drastically started changing, Seeing how Bitcoin was being developed, having a clearer perspective as to agendas and higher agendas at play as well. I remember sitting down and saying to myself, and then speaking with you guys about, you know what, this whole inter-blockchain world, I don't see it happening. And it's going to be painful. And we made the decision to ultimately kind of miss the crazy ICO boom and phase, right? To a certain degree, you can even say to our own financial detriment, right? To miss that phase. But we just saw it as a phase. And instead, we decided to focus our time and our attention into building an ecosystem. Because once people really realize that this crypto utopia dream of interchain operability and these projects ultimately run by cowboys for the most part with very fancy, shiny gold, diamond encrusted, emerald encrusted boots, when they realize that these projects don't work and this whole chasing mindless decentralization just as a slogan without actually looking at the mathematics of network topology, wholeness, complete mathematics, integers. There's a very different way of looking at blockchains. And I knew as soon as we had a set of individuals pop on the scene, predominantly Craig Wright, and the supporters around Craig Wright with the ecosystem that he has around him, the infrastructure, that he has around him, I knew that it wasn't really upon us to be too concerned about not having stable foundations anymore. That gave us opportunity to build a company that provided what we see as the whole to take this into the real world, right? This isn't about just the ability for individuals to trade in between crypto assets, okay? That is, from what we see, the tail end of what cryptocurrencies has been up until this point. Crypto 3.0, I'll say just Genesis, Bitcoin, and the early projects, Bitcoin Talk forums, and how projects were pre-mined or not pre-mined. Those are the early ICO days, right? And then I'll say 2.0 in terms of phases were the ICO boom, Ethereum boom, and what have you. And I really reckon the next stage is about utility, like real businesses, real companies, utility. And the companies who didn't fully buy into this tainted stage of the in-between between Genesis and where we are at present, where I think we really are starting to grow up. The fact that we didn't get caught up in that muck, we didn't taint ourselves with that muck. We even backed out of quite lucrative money-making opportunities and funding opportunities because we didn't want to taint what it is that we're building here. And the reason why we just spent an hour of this podcast speaking about your foundations and the reasoning as to why we're doing what we're doing here at Bitstocks is why we've made the decisions that we have, because we want this to be about stability, true, genuine economic sovereignty for the world. We have a strategy. Yes, UK, Europe, and then Asia is going to be our first point of interest. But we definitely are looking at other jurisdictions, South America, Africa. We want one way of measuring time and skill, one unit of measurement, one way of establishing global value around the globe, which will completely nullify the issues that you had growing up, right? The issues that people like Jimmy had growing up. And from my perspective, ultimately bathing the world into light, right? That is the power of what Bitcoin can do and what Bitcoin can provide. And this is why we're backing it so aggressively here at Bitstocks and why we're building Gravity. But there's a couple of stages that I want people to understand about Gravity, and I'd really like your perspective on this to really help people understand how we're going to build Gravity, how we're going to integrate into this fully different approach to doing, I guess for now, for legal terms, I'll say simulated banking, right? Now, right now, it's not about decentralization. And I really think people get the whole concept of decentralization in too much of a twist. Really, what you want when you're dealing with a financial company is transparency and really, I guess, solvency. You want to know the company is that you're dealing with has what they say they have, right? So I'll say definitely stage one and then stage two. Stage one is design. Amazing user interface, great design. How do we build everything and make it feel like it's nothing?
User experience, journey.
Journey, user experience. I say this has been the biggest issue in the cryptocurrency community is user experience.
I don't want to order a Raspberry Pi, wait 2 weeks, another week to synchronize a blockchain, then run my own Wi-Fi network, be happy that I was able to transmit one transaction. All I want is safely, securely use an application where I can do the same thing, same operation with a trusted party or directly with the blockchain. Mm-hmm. I don't need all the fluff.
Yeah, exactly that. The next stage for us is about building transparency and providing a different way of addressing the issues that come with centralized parties, because there's no way of getting around that. We're not going to try and tout Gravity at the beginning as being the perfect product and perfect solution. This is why we're doing such a huge effort to really show people behind the scenes who we are, what our agenda is, and where it is that we're going, and really encouraging people to comment, to interact.
We have always been open with that.
To come down to events. We've been really, really open with that. And we want feedback. We want people to provide us feedback as to what they expect from a different type of financial institution, right? But from what we're building right now with Gravity is literally just a case of plugging the holes that we've seen in the ecosystem, navigating our way around the ecosystem. I just want to use this. I want my mum to use this. I think that's a perfect use case. Like our parents should be able to use this. I shouldn't have a conversation about Raspberry Pi.
We are the first customers to use it. The whole company is going to be the first customers to use it.
And I really don't even want to necessarily have a conversation about Bitcoin when I'm asking my mum to use this. I just want people to be able to use it and start using this like real money.
And to get something out of it, like utility, right? As you said, you're using it because it makes your life easier on certain domains.
So what's been the biggest challenges for you with Gravity?
I think the biggest
and what are you stressing out about?
Lots of things. Yeah. I think the biggest challenge on Gravity was for us to basically find blockchain which will accommodate all our needs and the future growth of Gravity. We have loads of ideas. We know that we need to do certain things, but we are not yet sure how we can do those because there's no tools for that.
Yeah.
But solid foundations was one of the main concerns that we had with other blockchains that we went through iteration by iteration. So we started with Bitcoin, as you know. We had one of the first custodial model, which was never hacked, completely offline.
Yeah.
Yes, it has its drawbacks because it was quite slow.
Arguably Trezor before Trezor became Trezor, right?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Even I recently discovered another offline custodian model, which was called Glacier, I think. Mm-hmm. It's a it's quite known now online. And I just read through and I was like, I did this like 5 years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
So intellectual property. No, not joking. Joking. But obviously, like, you just have flashback. You're like, why people didn't start with this? Like, it was an obvious choice.
And that's an important thing. That really has been a Bitstocks approach. All right. We haven't sprinted out the gates.
No.
And a lot of people have made that mistake in crypto. A lot of people have, because it's such an easy money grab, the cryptocurrency
Even
space.
the ICO space, as you mentioned, like, I remember we were sitting down in upstairs, like, tinkering what we can offer. That was our main question, right? What we can offer. And then we got replies from the solicitors like, oh, you need to guise it under a utility token.
Yeah.
And we were like, yeah, but what does it offer? Like, fair enough. Like, we don't want to be like under the radar of like regulators because we suddenly are classified as a stock or whatever that we offer them. And they were like, utility token is the best way to go. But we didn't want to do that. We didn't want to raise the money.
And that was a time where we actually really needed it. Yeah,
Yeah.
We literally turned down 30 million.
100%.
Right? We was going to raise 30 million and we would have raised it easily.
100%. We didn't, at that stage, I remember people were raising projects.
It's probably doing it within an hour, right? I was like, let's do it within an hour.
You remember the project is like, this is not a project, 50K.
Yep, done.
Or
no, what was it? It was,
what was it?
we promised to give you nothing.
Yeah,
something along those lines,
people
right?
And
they
were
raised
just
like
throwing
100K.
money at nothing.
Yeah.
And we were like, this is stupid. This is going to explode. And what we're going to end up is with bad reputation. Our company will be on the... our company reputation will be on the line, and we have nothing to offer. So,
but more importantly than that, company reputation bad, all these things bad, right? My mission and your mission would not be fulfilled. People close to me, who've grown up with me, and people of acquaintances, ask me every now and again, like, what is it really all about? Why don't you have enough money, right? Obvious answer is no, you have no idea how expensive running Bitstocks is, right? You have no idea how expensive running Bitstocks is. However, this is not about money. Money is a byproduct. I don't want to be dismissive towards money. I don't want people to take this as us being disrespectful to people who are aspiring towards money. It's that we just don't view money in that way. And ironically, it does make us a magnet for it. But that's a different subject matter. The mission is economic sovereignty to the world. And we must do our role in providing economic sovereignty to the world. And through that dedication and the purity really of that mission, the byproduct is that we're going to leapfrog, and we will leapfrog a lot of these companies who did shoot out the gate, didn't give any real regards to what their reputation is. Whether they made 100 million, 2 million, 300 million, 500 million, I don't care what they've made. Even a billion, I don't care what a lot of these actors have made. Because if you value it based on contribution, okay, what are our children going to benefit from what it is that you have built?
Exactly. And this is, as you said, one of the forward-thinking ways of how Gravity is built upon. Like, we always strive to do something beyond where we can provide transparency. I go on and on about transparency, but genuinely, like, we have the tools now to do that. We have been thinking about how we can provide the company's sovereignty or the auditing tools for everyone to verify us. Right? Don't trust, verify. This is what we say, but now you can verify what we say is truth.
Yeah.
So we have started thinking about how we can snapshot our holdings, the company's assets, everything, and immortalize on the blockchain.
Yeah.
Just by doing that, a company basically signs legally a testament that, yes, this is what I have, this is what the company has. And in case of something happens, people will have the tools to sue us. So imagine the trust that the company is already putting out there for all the customers saying, like, this is what we have.
Yeah.
That's huge. I would never see any bank doing such thing because they will not be able to.
No, an incentive model.
They will not be able to.
Cloak and daggers.
Yeah, they will not be able to. What was it? They maybe hold like 5 to 10% of what they say they have. The bank runs are near and it's gone. Like, everything is shut down, right? They hear bank run, machines are shut off.
Lockdown, right?
Right.
Was it, again, yellow vest protests, right? One of the stages that they
Happened
wanted
as well,
to do
right? Yeah.
is they were going to do a run on the banks. And peaceful run on the banks, which is just going into the bank and asking for your money, right?
You exert your legal right. You exert your legal right and you get shut down. How is that reasonable? It doesn't make sense.
So, why SV? Why is for gravity and what is that we're doing and the technology we know that's coming, the things that we're excited about. How do we see gravity from what it is that people know about gravity thus far, the ecosystem? But I guess really the inner workings, the behind the scenes workings, maybe some things that some people just may never ever really know about, right? But in terms of SV, the roadmap of SV, N-Chain as part of this as well, and the technologies that they're working on. How do you see gravity evolving due to the development of SV?
Well, genuinely, when I do say aggressive scaling, that's what's happening. Aggressive scaling is happening. And we have more and more companies trying to make use of that data space and the ledger, the immutable ledger, to come up with crazy ideas, crazy business ideas. And you give the platform, the tools to people to develop. And trust me, people come up with really good ideas. When they have the tools and the means of producing something, they come up with ideas that you would never ever thought that is possible to do, right? So you suddenly open the door of so much like imagination and so much place of how I can put this, something where people will be freely able to express themselves without worrying, and it's not going to cost them much.
Yeah,
that's really it, right? You don't need to spend much to be able to do so much.
So what's like the most exciting thing for me, and also I can see how lit up you get when we have these little brainstorming sessions, is but when there's a new piece of technology released on SV, like the op returns, right? We was last night, Geneva Airport, right? And was thinking about what should our announcement be at CoinGate, what really we want our announcement to be. There's a couple of different things that it could be, right? And we just went on a wild brainstorming session because a new piece of technology, well, not a new piece of technology, an old piece of technology, ironically, was reactivated within Bitcoin with the op return function. And it's just cool. I mean, it's so basic, but it's just cool because we're there pissing around on Bitstagram, having a laugh and a chuckle at the meme of Jihan Wu hugging Roger Ver, right? On the Titanic, and knowing that's going to be there forever. I just think that's hilarious. Just know that memes like that.
And it costed how much to do that?
Was it
Sub-cent.
0.0016?
Yes, something like that.
Like great. It was definitely worth the money to put that photo online, right? But so you take that from that example and you just look at it as a technical showcase. And people might see this as childish and a silly utilization of code and time. But from a technical mind who then looks at this, we were just, our minds just went, right? Like, how can we start adapting and evolving this into our model? And I think this highlights onto a important issue, I guess, for CTOs within this space, because you are tasked with building a team, building for some part of it, conventional ecosystem and a conventional business model. And then you also have to have a blockchain division, okay? You need to keep up to date with new blockchain developments. And you need to be of a mind that can actually have a broad enough perspective to then see business use cases as to how these things can apply to what it is that we are working on. And then you've got to structure and map that out. Then we have to allocate resources to these different things. This is why it is incredibly expensive to build a effective Bitcoin or blockchain-based business. It is an insane amount of work, and it never stops. It never
stops.
Ever stops.
It's a different field.
I mean, being an entrepreneur is kind of like building a railroad with a train breathing down your neck, right? I'm still putting every single freaking slat down, and the train is literally breathing down my neck. In crypto, it's like building a railroad, and you've got a Japanese freaking bullet train breathing down your neck. You're just frantically trying to lay
Shinkansen
down.
is coming.
Right? It's literally coming. But this is where mistakes are made. And I feel like this is something that we've done really, really well at Bitstocks in not rushing out the gates and being really structured with our thought process. But this is really, really difficult. What is some advice that you would give to people who are either starting out or people already established in the space on running a tech team in crypto?
I think the advice that I will give them is mainly around focus on the things that you want to deliver as a product and do them really well. Don't go really crazy on a tangent and try to do everything at once. Do always iterative processes. Like at Bitstocks, we have noticed, like when we started really applying iterative process, like we nailed it.
Yeah.
We are doing one single thing. We are doing it so well that there's no question about it. Everyone gets it. Everyone knows how it works. Everyone knows what the tool is going to be, and you just move on. You just continually improve your product upon iteration, and feedback. That's something that I really, really tend to give as an advice. Very important advice to everyone who wants to build. But the blockchain industry, in general, is a different field. It is a minefield. it is a different field. You get caught into so many things at once, and you just start like expanding, and sometimes you go on tangent. And it's very important to come back to what that technology offers you at basic level, because I did mention this. We use very small capacity of what blockchain technology allows us to do. Even the concept of like sending value or money from the blockchain, that's just scrapping the barrel, like small amount of what we can do. It's such a tiny piece of what Bitcoin offers, what the ecosystem offers. So at Bitstocks, what we tend to do is, as you said, try to analyze the issues that we have, put in lines with what we want to offer to the world, and solve these problems with the blockchain tools that we have at our disposition at that given time. And it has been working quite well with BSV, because what BSV allows us to do is they are business friendly. They are friendly with the government rules and regulations. They're not trying to hide things. They're not trying to do the next crazy anonymous coin or something which is like very niche use, but they do understand the business use cases. They try and strive to build tools and groundworks for the businesses to grow and to use that. That's all you need as a business. That's exactly what you need. Solid foundations. Your ground needs to be solid. Like that's where you build your building blocks on top, right?
I think there was a massive release of anxiety when I guess Enchain came on the scene for us, because they provided exactly that. They provided a resource center for businesses to get answers for some basic questions. Okay. Now, not to put too much of a huge halo on Enchain, because you have to be very realistic about the burdens that they're going through as a company as well. They're taking on an incredible amount of work. So the most important thing, however, is that even though they're taking on such an incredible amount of work, they are very approachable. So even if the SDK kit isn't out right now, right, and all the tools aren't out right now that allow you to build, they are so approachable that you can actually almost integrate with them and build potential solutions with them based on the technology is that they have coming out. And just to have a stable protocol that we know has an incredible amount of backing, funding, but technical expertise and vision to really take this to a truly, truly global utilized network allows us to have the confidence in our business model and our development cycles and our hiring processes and our resource allocations to stay focused, right? Because before, I'll be point blank, before these guys came back on the scene, it was a cloudy, murky place to really work out how we're going to integrate the blockchain side of the business.
It-
How are we going to
it
migrate
was.
from a traditional model to I'm not going to say decentralized model, because that's not necessarily what we're trying to do. The network's decentralized. We're building a solution on top of it that leverages from the transparency aspect of what this technology provides and the frictionless aspect of what this technology provides. That alone completely revolutionizes our industry, our industry. But until we had the confidence of stable protocols, stable foundations, the fact that people aren't going to be experimenting on something they haven't even put the real work into understanding, right? And this is something that I touched on, obviously, with my podcast with Craig, which publicly I haven't gone into too much detail on for obvious reasons, but you and I have had very deep conversations about my perspective of Bitcoin and the angle that I'm coming from with Bitcoin, the kind of interesting revelations that are stemming really from that, and where we see this going. So we are building Gravity, we are building a company. Even Gravity, there's a lot of information baked into even why it's called Gravity and the symbols that we utilize, right? And this is, for me, what makes what it is that we're doing amazing, because we come from a background of instability. We have always been into tech. And me personally have definitely always been into how the world has been run and been very against how the world has been run. But interestingly, throughout all of this, we are anarchists. We are not anarchists.
No, not at all.
Right? We understand that this technology can bring light into what was otherwise a very cloudy day, right? With how this planet has been run. And that, I hope, is going to be the direction and angle that most people are going to start taking. I really hope to see a lot of businesses. I definitely see this in the SV camp, which is just why we are so pro SV, but we don't alienate the rest of the cryptocurrency community. Again, I keep saying these things, but I don't believe the cryptocurrency community is trying to do, for the most part, nefarious things and trying to be negative. There's just a lot of misinformation out there. And the more that we band together in a similar fashion to how this community really has banded together, and if you notice the individuals within this community and what it is that they're building, there's some great technology, some great applications out there. But the ethos, the core mentality behind the community is not of one of anarchism. It's one of building real tools, real businesses that's going to provide economic sovereignty to the world. And that is why I definitely say that we are a hugely powerful duo. We really are a powerful duo here. And everyone here at Bitstocks, the whole team, everyone gets behind that. They resonate with that. And our clients resonate with that. Our acquaintances resonate with that. And we see this, this isn't a Bitstocks thing. This is a common way of viewing the world and having the attitude and mentality to then build that world that we want to see. And I think that is very inspiring as what I see about this whole community. And it's definitely why you and I have formed the relationship that we have formed, because we are united in that one common goal.
100%.
On that basis, is there anything you'd like to say before we quickly round up? It's been quite a conversation. I definitely want to go into a lot more subject matters. I'm definitely going to be having you on naturally a lot more as we're transpiring with Bitstocks. But anything you'd like to say to round up, David?
I think I would also like to add that we're open to any other views. So if anyone wants to join our podcast, be it from any camp, I don't like to use the word camp because it's like, at the end of the day, everybody is building Bitcoin because they believe.
Firstly, it's pronounced camp, and that's your 5 languages distorting with one another right there.
There you go. So I think it would be beneficial for anyone who wants to join our podcast, just reach us out and you will be more than welcome to come and discuss things.
And always, if you like the podcast, hit the thumbs up. If you like it, give us a comment. If you don't like it, give us a comment. If you don't like it, give us a thumb down. But if you really love it, make sure you hit the subscribe and the bell button as well. Peace, love, and as always, light.
Thank you.